at the end of the quarter to a pass or a fail or a pass with distinction, which would be about a 90 or higher. And so that will be what you'll be seeing coming out at the end of the year. Additionally, I just wanted to add that the AP exams are going off this year. So for students who have been working all year in an AP and advanced placement class where they can take an exam for potential college credit, those exams will be happening. They've started and will be happening in the next couple of weeks. Our staff have been working really hard with the kids to make sure that they're ready for those. Additionally, I was able to update you last time that there is no standardized testing this year going on due to distance learning. So the school day SAT and the Smarter Balance assessments did not take place this spring. As a result, this current 11th grade will be given an opportunity to take the SAT in the fall of 12th grade next year at no cost, because a lot of our students use this for college applications. So more will be coming out on that. The last piece I have for you is just a reminder that our pre-K offers went out in March, and pre-K families are completing the registration process if they were offered a space. And kindergarten families should also be reaching out to schools and registering. They can do the initial registration online on each of the elementary school websites, and then the school secretaries will be in contact for next steps. But we are definitely still taking registrations for kindergarten, and again, that's the birth year 2015 for kindergarten next year.
Ms. Parsons, how many applications for preschool did we have to not accept or turn away?
I have to look at the exact number. We have a short wait list of about 10 or 12 families, but we were able to offer out and fill all of the other spots. And so currently, I think we have about 45. We usually have between 55 and 65 families that we offer free preschool to, whether it's half day or full day every year. And so I believe we had 2 families who really wanted only full day options, and we weren't able to offer them because we had too many. And then we do have a short wait list for half day options. But we will be able to offer an opportunity to all of our 4-year-olds. So all of the kids who will be coming up to kindergarten the year after will be able to have a preschool spot for next year. The students on the wait list are the 3-year-olds who do have additional time before they come up to school.
Thank you.
All right, hold on one second here. Sorry. Okay, thank you, Jen. I also want to turn it over to Rich Trudeau because he wants to talk about a process we're going to use for our Chromebook insurance moving forward. So, Rich, do you want to take that from here?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. So over the past several years, we've had many experiences with different third-party Chromebook insurance vendors. Some good, some not so good. Some of the main reasons that I say not so good would be, for example, turnaround times for repairs. The Chromebooks have to be shipped out, and then we wait for them to get repaired by their repair vendors. And then they come back. On average, this can be anywhere from a 1 to 3 week turnaround. So another item that we saw this year is we got another quote from our current Chromebook insurance provider. They wanted to raise our premiums per unit. And this led me to take a look at several items. And I met with Marty, discussed that we'd like to change the insurance, Chromebook insurance, from going through a third party to doing it in-house. Our techs are very fluent with all of our Chromebooks. There are times where they repair them themselves. And we feel that we can handle the entire process in-house starting next year. And again, the main reasons would be that our current provider wishes to raise the premiums. I've worked very hard the past 5 years to maintain a $25 price. Also, they would remove parts of their coverage, and this is due to typical insurance reasons, whether it be claim rates or just the cost of providing the insurance. We feel our repair turnaround, as I mentioned to Marty, would be 1 to 2 school days, and now that's versus 1 to 3 weeks, calendar weeks. We took a look at our tech time that would be involved, and typically now with the current Chromebook insurance, there's quite a bit of time. We figure approximately 12 minutes per Chromebook. This includes packaging. You have to get boxes to pack. You have to call the shipper. You have to arrange everything, which our techs have been doing. And we've timed out self-repairs, and we're still within that 12-minute average. And yet we're getting the student their Chromebook back in 1 to 2 school days. We have more control over the Chromebooks. They don't leave our district. Some differences if we're going to do this in-house. One highlight would be, a couple actually. We get to maintain the $25 cost. There would be a cap of 2 repairs included for that $25 cost in a school year. And I just want to point out, if a student were to bring us a Chromebook and the battery went bad, that would not count as a repair. So the student would still be at 0, let's say, repairs. And then the other thing to remember, I want to remind parents again, as the past years, if you decide to opt out of the insurance, then you're responsible for all repairs. Example repairs would be a keyboard would be $50. A monitor screen would be $50. A motherboard, which is an internal part, would be $125. Over the past few years, we've averaged about 85% parents participating or who took the insurance at Eli Terry, and about 63% at the high school. You know, nothing surprising with those participation rates. Just a side note, we have over 1,100 Chromebooks out at the current time. And you have 353 students at Eli, and I think around 380 students at the high school. And I'd be happy to take any questions about the change in insurance.
I just dropped off 2 Chromebooks to you today, so I know how the kids, one was for the microphone not working, one, a screw came loose somewhere and started separating, but I think that Jillian's turned in her Chromebook at least 3 times this year for things, so I know that they rely on them.
Thanks, Cindy. And that's the key thing. One of the biggest things bothering me is we're waiting this 1 to 3 weeks to get these Chromebooks back. Now we control it all. We repair it. We get it back to the students.
I think it's a good idea. And then the insurance,
I like the idea.
go towards all the parts and stuff that you need, right?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Right. I'm forecasting in the area of 400 repairs in a typical school year. That could be anything: a missing key, a screen, a damaged top, cover.
I like the idea.
Great.
Yeah, we believe it's going to have a positive impact on, like what Rich said, in terms of turnaround time. And if we have to start increasing our insurance costs for the parents, that's not necessarily a good thing. So going from 25 to 30, then to 40, you can see parents more and more opting out. So taking it in-house, we should be able to run this efficiently. When we did it with the food services, we've done very, very well over the past few years. So we'd like to at least do this as a pilot going into next year. And I suspect it'll be a positive thing. And if it's not, it's not doesn't have to be something we do forever. But I do think it's worthwhile. Rich is really looking at this. Rich just talked to Paul about the financing piece of it in terms of just the economics of it, not financing, but economics, and supports the plan as well. So we'll keep you guys updated, but we would definitely want to answer any questions if there was any questions out there, any additional questions.
Thank you.
All right, and I do have one more update, which is I'm going to unmute Mr. Holtz. Okay, so Mr. Holtz's mic's unmuted at this point. We know that graduation is on the minds of a number of our seniors and senior parents, and so we thought it'd be good just to kind of share where we currently are with the conversation. We were hoping, as I mentioned before, we were supposed to get some guidance from the state on graduation exercises by today. Didn't get them. We got an apology. And then we do have a meeting scheduled for this Friday where we're supposed to be able to ask questions about graduation, which makes me think we should get guidance before we can ask the question. So I'm hoping the guidance comes prior to the opportunity to ask questions. But nonetheless, I thought it was important, and Mr. Seaman also thought it was important for Mr. Holtz to share just some of the conversations he's been having. No decisions have been made at this time, but some of the work that's going on behind the scenes to try to make this year as special as possible for our kids. So, Mike, you want to share with the board where you're at?
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. So we have a couple priorities that we're trying to look at. Our first priority, obviously, is the safety and well-being of our entire school community. And a lot of that is where the state guidelines come from, and obviously some common sense too. So we want to make sure that any of our families and our students and any of our staff members that are part of this, including any of the board members who typically participate, we just want to make sure that we can all go home safely that evening and make sure that we're as safe as possible and that we haven't exposed ourselves unnecessarily. Our next priority is that of trying to recognize the hard work and the accomplishments of the class of 2020. They've certainly gotten cut short this year. Our athletic teams weren't able to compete in the spring. We weren't able to have some of our award ceremonies that we typically do. Prom has been canceled, and now graduation is certainly going to look different, whatever that may be. So those are our top two priorities, but we also have another concern in general about we want to make sure that whatever we do, that it is a quality ceremony. We want to make sure that there's some dignity to it and that there's some organization to it. On a typical year, we end up rehearsing with the kids for 2 days. We try to communicate out with parents about getting tickets and how they're going to get into the building and the timelines. And so there's a lot that goes into a normal ceremony. So whatever it is that we decide, we want to make sure that we try to communicate in as many avenues as possible to make sure that everybody can participate in an appropriate way, and that it doesn't look like a total mishmash. So we certainly don't want to just be a half thrown together thing by any stretch. I don't think that does any justice for the class of 2020. So I've been meeting with, I'm starting to really lose track of time, but I think we've been meeting off and on for about a month. I've been meeting with the PTSA, our senior class advisors, which are a handful of our teachers. I've been meeting with our class officers. We have another meeting actually tomorrow. Been looking into some other districts and what they're doing. So we've been reaching out to the Berkshire League schools. Some of the PTSA parents have gotten some info from other towns, just from friends and cousins and nephews and whatever. So we've looked at some options that other schools are considering. So we have some ideas. We'd like to try and do something in person of some sort. One of the ideas that we've kind of been floating around is some type of like a car parade through the high school. We've also considered if that wouldn't work based on guidelines, based on concern of, you know, that could be a 2-3 hour process if we were to try and do everybody at the same time. You know, I imagine people are going to have a hard time sitting in their car for that long. And so then do you have to worry about social distancing and people getting out and being too close for too long? So if that doesn't meet with the guidelines, we've also thrown around the idea of like the staff and central office and the board doing a parade of our own and going house to house where seniors would be able to decorate their yards and have whatever family members they were comfortable having with them. I have a couple surprises that we're kind of working on, so I want to be careful what I put out, but we do want to try and do some form of video stuff for our kids. That's about as far as I want to go with that, because I do have a couple of ears listening here. And so I don't want to throw away anything too quick here, but we have several things in the pipelines that we'd like to try and pull together. And again, the focus is to recognize the class of 2020 and all the work that our seniors have done for 13, 14 years in our district. So that's kind of where we're at. I don't know if there's any specific questions. Again, we've been kind of throwing around ideas. There's pros and cons to pretty much all of them. The guidelines, I think, are going to put us more in the right direction of what we can and cannot do. But we don't have anything set in stone yet, just for that reason. And I think Karen's been with us for 1 or 2 of the last meetings we've had. Just even trying to figure out what the PTSA might do in terms of supporting the senior class. Typically, they put an enormous amount of effort into fundraising so that they can provide scholarships for our seniors, but they also put on the after-grad party, which takes place down at the Shelton Sports Center. It's an evening where all the kids get on the bus right from the school. There's no driving whatsoever. They go down there, they spend the entire evening just having a blast, ice skating and mini golf and movies and food and everything you can pretty much imagine. And obviously that's going to be canceled and altered quite a bit as well. So we've talked about maybe like a 1-year reunion of some sort. So we've been trying to work with as many of those constituents as possible to try and provide something that our community can be proud of when we wrap up with our senior class.
Mr. Holtz, any thought to contacting the Lions Club and having an outdoor event? They have an outdoor stage there. At least the students, I think, deserve to be able to walk the stage in their cap and gown and receive their diploma. I understand the state guidelines. In my other life, I kind of deal with this quite a bit. And they are guidelines. Obviously, we don't want to do anything to put anybody in jeopardy. But an outdoor event, I think I would predict would fall under the criteria of, what the state is possibly looking at for guidelines. Mr. Foote could maybe speak a little more since he is a Lion member, if that is a possibility, and limit the number of people who can attend.
I think it is a possibility, and I wouldn't mind, talking to the Lions Club president and other members, because I really think the town and/or the service organizations here in town ought to do something for these kids. I don't know when or how, but I do think we owe it to them. So
I agree, Mr. Foote. I would also like to throw in there, and I don't want to forget our 8th graders either. Typically, so maybe on the same day, if we're able to obtain the fairgrounds at no charge, Mr. Foote, stay in contact with Mr. Holtz, that, possibly during the same day we could do something for those 8th grade students as well.
I don't think it would be a problem getting the fairgrounds. So, nothing's happening up there this summer anyway, so.
Just an idea.
Yep.
I'd like to see at least even the graduating class walking a stage in their cap and gown, receiving their diploma formally, not out the, no offense to anything, but out of a car window. Like you said, they've worked very hard over the 13th, 14th years that they've been, most of them, 13, 14 years. I think if we could do it safely, they at least deserve that.
So one of the ideas that we floated around, if we were to do some form of like a car parade through the high school, we have talked about what the fairgrounds could possibly offer too, which would certainly be more vehicles and, you know, so more family members could attend. My concern with that would be some of what we'd like to do is try and videotape as much as possible. And I
Sure.
don't know what we'd be able to do as far as technology there. And my concern, and I've never gone to the fairgrounds intentionally to think about a graduation ceremony, so I would certainly want to map that out. One of my concerns could be that, you know, potentially we have a bunch of these cars so we can get grandma and grandpa and uncles and aunts there, and then they can't see anything just because of the way the parking layout is. If we were to do something at the high school, I was actually up last week with my family checking it out. Out back where we usually let the students in for the buses, we have big letters right across that wall there. It says Terryville High School. My thought was that we could potentially build like a small staging area there. We could have the podium and our flowers and everything. And so if we were to do a parade of some sort, kind of like I think Newington just put this out, basically the graduate would get out, they'd be able to walk that stage. You could take a picture quickly. We'd also have our photographer there. And then they could get back in the car and kind of circle back around. So we have discussed the idea of doing a stage of some sort. You know, I know the kids have been big on the idea of trying to graduate at their school as a whole. So if we can pull that off potentially. The other really good part about that, and I started talking with Rich about this a little bit, I'd love to be able to, if at all possible, record this and have it running on Facebook Live. So that way when you have family members that maybe couldn't travel out for all sorts of reasons, or just realize that they're not going to be able to get a great up close shot, Facebook Live, you know, we could have 2 or 3 cameras set up outside and grab all sorts of different angles. And so it'd be very up close. And we could try and snap some of those bits of video and actually put together a commemorative video of some sort for the seniors. So those are some of the ideas we've been running about. I've been very conscious of obviously the safety. I also want to make sure that whatever we do is something that we can be proud of and doesn't put us on the map for a wrong reason. You know, when we have a social gathering like this, you know, you just never know what possibly could happen. Typically when we're in the building, there's a lot of control and a lot of order that's kind of set up. You know, I'd hate for somebody that either maybe doesn't graduate or somebody that's not even related to the town come roaring through with a vehicle, or, you know, something that could just ruin the evening. So just want to make sure that we consider all of our options, try to come up with as many of the negatives as possible so we can try and have an alternative or a strategy to try and reduce any of those negatives. So I certainly don't want our kids to remember this graduation for any wrong reason. So those are some of the things that we've been talking and thinking about, though.
Great. So that is the, unless there's other questions, that's our update for tonight.
Okay, great. All right. Item number 6, student representatives. Taylor?
Great. So I'm going to unmute Taylor. Taylor, you should be able to speak. Is that you, Taylor?
Yes.
All right.
Today I'm the only student representative here because the other 2 people they're essential employees and they're both at their jobs.
Oh, okay.
I get the pleasure of not being an essential employee. So basically there obviously isn't much for me to talk about, you know, we're not like in school, but I wanted to just give an update about online learning, about how it's going for us and also our AP testing. So online learning with the block schedule is fantastic. Of course, there's a few kinks that we're working out within the school and it's effective and, you know, I'm not overwhelmed anymore, so that's pretty nice. And then AP testing, Julia took an AP test the other day and unfortunately she's not here to talk about it. But I have my first and only AP test on Tuesday, but I've done research on how people have felt about it because, you know, Connecticut isn't the only state that's taking an AP test. And there has been a lot of issues with it that College Board is frantically working out. I just got an email from Nave from them about all of the issues that they had with the exams this week. And so they're working out the kinks and working as hard as they can to make it easier for students, thank God. And so hopefully my test is one of the last ones, and so hopefully mine is pretty seamless.
Okay. Is that all, Taylor?
Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. All right. So item number 7, public comment. Dr. Semelta or Rich, what do they have to hit to be able to make a public comment?
Sure. You want me to go, Marty?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Yeah. Anyone on a, excuse me, on a telephone, please press *9. That will raise a hand for us to see. Anyone on the computer, you need to go to the bottom of your screen and select the participants icon. And then at the bottom of that window that pops up, you should see raise hand. So again, phone *9, and computers, participants, and then raise hand.
Anybody see any public comment?
I don't.
Okay, I don't either. All right, so recognizing no public comment at this time, we'll move on to item number 8, new business. Mrs. Parsons, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Hello. So we have a new proposed textbook there was a summary of the textbook in your packet. We have a new teacher taking over for AP Statistics next year, and as a result, we've been looking at the textbook that we have and realized that the textbook we have is very old and outdated. And so in reviewing the textbooks and the suggestions from the College Board, which gives us guidelines for what we can use for AP courses, we are putting forward a proposal to purchase the updated version of the Practice of Statistics, the 6th edition. And this is a text that it has a lot of technology pieces that are embedded in it, as well as for the teacher, for the students. There's sample test questions that are embedded, as well as things that can be used for formative and summative assessment. It is a well-known and well-used book. Being the 6th edition, it's actually like the 6.5 edition. It was just updated this past year to reflect guidelines from College Board. So there are several districts that are using this book, including Hartford, Region 11, Ledyard, Ansonia, and Norwalk, and many, many more that are using a previous edition, like the 5th edition. So the way that textbook purchases work for the most part right now is that the best deals are to buy a 6-year subscription. And what that is that if we buy 10 copies for a 6-year subscription, then we then have 60 copies of the book to share out with students. So the overview was shared with you. Our policy requires that we have a textbook on display for public review before we can move forward with a motion to adopt the book. So I currently have a book in my possession that can be viewed for any public who want to make an appointment to do so. So I would ask that if anybody has questions about the AP Statistics book, I can answer them or do my best to answer them right now. And we would come back in June and put this on as a motion item.
Do they have a digital copy you could post somewhere?
I do have a digital copy of the teacher's edition right now that I would be able to share that login with individual people on a one-to-one basis. So that is another option, yes. But if anybody's interested, please just send me an email and I can share that with you.
How much of the book is online if you purchase it in case if we don't go back to school next year or the students need it online?
What for the electronic textbooks that we get right now, They pretty much include a print copy to have in the classroom, but 100% of the textbook is online, and there's always additional features that are available online that aren't in a print copy. So 100% of that teacher's edition and 100% plus of the student edition will be available online.
Any other questions for Mrs. Parsons?
How much is it going to cost for 6 years?
So it runs about $170 for one student, but for 6 years. So that's like 6 copies. So in essence, it's under $30 per student for the use of the online textbook.
And in 6 years, this one would be outdated. Do they give you the updated version, like if they change it in 4 years?
Yeah, that's the really nice part of the electronic textbooks is that we will get one print. So if we order 20 licenses, we'll get 20 print books to keep in the classroom just for reference. But when they update the book online, our online book resources are always updated. So if the College Board were to change something, or if we decide that there's a new topic that needs to be in statistics and that book is updated, we always have the online, the most current copy.
Any other questions for Mrs. Parsons? Cindy, you're good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Mrs. Parsons.
You're welcome.
All right. So moving along, item number 9, board member committee reports, finance and operations. Turn this over to Dr. Semmel and Mr. Hendrickson.
Yep, so Paul's going to take this away, and what I'm going to do, Paul, is I'm going to share my screen for a second. I'm going to be sharing, I hope, your...
Oh, my graph?
Yeah, your graph. Hopefully you all see it.
There we go.
Give me 1 second, because it doesn't look great right now. Hold on.
Yeah. Ooh.
How's that?
Great. I need to be unmuted, I think.
No, you're unmuted.
I can hear you.
Oh, I am? Okay.
Yeah.
Through April, the Board of Education has spent or encumbered $18.9 million or 77.3% of its budget. Last year, that figure was $18.2 million or 75.9% of its budget. For the last 3 years, the percent of budget spent to date through April was between 75% and 76.5%, with the average being 75.8. So the question you obviously would ask is, why are we currently 1.5% greater than the average for those past 3 years? On page 2 of the facilities report, the Board of Ed is still waiting for the $94,000 transfer from the town sinking fund for the completed PCS roof project. Also, we continue to pay our healthcare invoices 1 month in advance, and so that's $252,000 on page 21. And between the two of those, that accounts for about, it does account for 1.5% of the budget. Other things of note in the budget book, someone asked before why we have a deficit, our custodial overtime account. It's a small deficit on page 17, roughly $7,600. That is because we haven't gotten reimbursed from the town Park and Rec for custodians providing services on Saturdays and Sundays. And also, we only charge Park and Rec for custodial services on weekends, if that question ever arises. Also, on page 21, a magnet school transportation shows a deficit. Any day now, we should be receiving our grant of $67,600. Last year, it was received on the 15th of May, so I expect by Monday we should have it in hand. And let's see, also on another item, on page 22, there's a slight deficit of $6,700 in the cafeteria salaries account. That's because payroll is paid out of the general fund. That payroll account is then reimbursed by the school lunch account, so it just hasn't caught up yet. And in way of good news, on April 24th, the district received the third of 3 payments for the Educational Equalization Grant, or ECS grant. We get 3 payments a year. It goes 25%, 25%, and 50%. So we received 4.9 million on April 24th for a yearly total of 9.8 million. That's slightly larger than last year's 9.77 million. It's $27,000 greater. And let's see. We also received, on May 7th, we received our second and last ECR, which is excess cost reimbursement related to special education. That was $69,786. So our total for the year is $370,000, and it's in line with roughly the 70 to 75% reimbursement guideline that the state normally gives out, and that's within the range of the normal funding. The grant is normally around 140 million for the state. However, how that is parceled out depends on obviously the amount of total dollars, the number of students qualifying statewide for services, and the level of each district's so-called deductible, which is 4.5 times the net current expenditures per pupil. Other than that, does anybody have any questions? I don't have anything else prepared, but I'm ready to answer any questions you might have.
Have we spoke to Anne Marie and the Park and Rec and find out when we can?
I've talked or sent notes to Anne Marie a couple times. I will follow up when I'm back in the office. I was in the office today. I might be in Friday or Monday. I will be in Monday, and I might think she is busy with the budget, so I'll follow up, and I'll follow up with Park and Rec as well. And Robin has been dealing with Brianna and find out why or when that we can expect reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so you didn't talk about this time, but I want to follow up from last meeting. We talked about the discussion of the IDEA grant, and you were supposed to have a conference call with CAVE and CAPS. Was there any update on the IDEA grant?
I did not have one with CAVE and CAPS. Maybe Lindsay did.
Because it said that you were going to have one the day after our last meeting, and I haven't had an update, so I was just wondering, Lindsay, do you have anything? Are we on track with that? Are we what's going on with it?
Talk to me more specifically about what kind of update you want. So as far as IDEA itself, like the law.
No, not the law.
Do you mean the grant itself? So the grant has been submitted for next year, but as far as I think what you're referencing is there was some talk of possibly fully funding IDEA for next year, and there's been no move forward for that as far as I know. As far as I know, our IDEA grant is going to be similar to what it was last year as long as it gets approved. Okay. And it should be set to be approved. Marty changed it to approved status by the superintendent on Monday, and now the state gets back to us, but there's no further information on it being increased for next year
okay.
Based on the current situation.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
On page 18, the diagnostic service, the 5th one up from the bottom.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more about what that one was?
I would defer to Lindsay if she has any information. I don't have any information with me
I
now.
assume you're talking about it being negative, right, Cindy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the lines that you'll see that is not negative is our outplacement line. And so we do have a few students who are currently in between placements based on the current situation or their own personal situation. And we have brought in some outside service providers to help engage those students in their schooling. And so the cost of that comes out of a different line than what their tuition would come out of. And so since we're not paying their tuition, we do have to pay for other services. Another thing that's come out of that line this year that has caused it to go negative is some of our school refusal based services. We have a couple of students who are engaged in school refusal services, and that comes out of a diagnostic line as well.
And since there's so few negative lines and they're all reasonably small, I'm deferring on possible transfers until the next board meeting, and then we'll take a look at what we have then and request any possible transfers. So,
Okay, want to move on to the roof project?
Josiah
Josiah has his
has,
hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Hello. Apparently the New Britain School District is getting money from the CARES Act. Do we know if we or anyone else will be?
Yep, we all are. I just saw a note today. It was north of $150,000 that we will be getting in Plymouth. Some districts will get, I saw some will get 9 million. And we will get about I want to say $158,000 is what we just saw. And I see Jen nodding too. And yeah, they just sent us a list today of what every town should be receiving. And I'm hoping to get a little bit more guidance in terms of there's supposed to be an application process, and it's supposed to be a relatively straightforward application process. But myself, Jen, and Lindsay, and Paul are going to have to take a look at that when it comes out to make sure that we know how to use every dollar, to make sure that every one of those dollars that they're going to provide to us is employed. Otherwise, I imagine it goes back to the feds. And so I'm assuming the board wants to make sure we use every dollar we can and as most efficiently and effectively as possible too. But it's 150, not 9 million or anything. So we are a smaller district.
Are you sure you don't want to take any of it that we don't use and give it to whoever's receiving 9 million? I think they
They already got their share. They base this off, Josiah, they base it off the Title I allocations, and Jen could talk more specifically if somebody wanted to, but we get a percentage every year of all the Title I funds that come to the state of Connecticut. And they're just breaking it up the same way that the funds come for Title I. They're doing it the same way for this CARES Act for schools.
so that money has to be used by the Board of Ed.
That's my understanding. Yeah. Yep. That's
Exclusively by the Board of Ed.
It's gonna go to the town, and then the town has to disperse it to us, correct?
Yeah, that's a good question, Paul. Did you know like where the check would come in? I'm guessing the town would get a check like
the town would get it. They haven't said either the feds or the town where the check would come in, but it's specifically earmarked for schools. I looked that up today and have some attachments I can send you later tonight, Marty, or tomorrow, that outline what is in the act.
The fact that they're asking us to fill out an application, which I'm assuming will be through the e-grant system through the state, would mean that the money would come to us through that grant system. And by us, I mean the Board of Ed is my inclination, but I don't have confirmation on that.
Okay. Any other questions regarding that?
And I would just throw out there that our understanding is it does not have to be used by June 30th.
Okay.
That this is about kind of remediation when we come back and trying to make sure our kids, we fill as many holes as possible. So we shouldn't be trying to scramble to spend all this by June 30th.
Okay. The roof project, do you want to start with that, Dr. Semmel?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually ask Mr. Hendrickson to talk about the roof project. He's been working with Mr. Mays on this quite a bit, so he's in a better position.
Okay.
Okay, this started probably 4 or 5 months ago at least. We contracted with someone to do an overflight of the roof to get an idea of the wet spots. Do an overflight with drones at night and in the daytime, and temperature differential tells where the wet spots are. And then Jim and I went on the roof with our contractor, took a look. He showed us specific spots that needed to be repaired. The spots that really need repair are on the right-hand side of the roof as you look at the school. So it's roughly half the roof, and also included is a very small amount to repair the chimney that is crumbling and potentially could be hazardous. This is the same contractor that handled the Plymouth Center roof 2 or 3 months ago. The project was presented to the mayor, the board of chairman of the Board of Finance, head of the Capital Commission, and they all agreed that it needed to be done. And so we asked for a price estimate, price proposal from the contractor. He thought it would be $400,000 or $500,000. It came back at $252,943 for the roof. For repairing the chimney is $20,086 for a total of $273,029. Added to that, we have to take down the solar array and put it back up, and that came in at $76,550.73. So the total is just shy of $350,000. So the $349,579.73. And there's also, I question our contractor. You know, when you do this, you could rip apart a roof and find something wrong underneath. Should we put in a contingency? He says normally he doesn't find anything, but a 5% contingency would be prudent, and in this case it would be $17,500. And having been on the roof, and I also went on the roof at Wilton where they were doing a job and saw their work, I would recommend that they do the work. This does not need to be bid because it is under a consortium type arrangement. The people who have come forth with a better bid are the people that did the Plymouth Center roof, and they did a quality job, and I would recommend that the board approve this request.
Okay. All right.
TV Live.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the expenditure of $349,579.73 for repair and replacement of the Hairiest Elementary School roof, plus an additional $17,500 for a 5% contingency if needed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. All right. Without hearing any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Now the track project we have discussed previously at the high school. I know a lot of work went into that. So I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the expenditure of $61,268.24 for the resurfacing and striping of the Taylorville High School track.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay. Any discussion on the motion?
I'm just curious, when's it happening?
Well, if we approve it tonight, I think the roof will happen right away. That's been approved.
Yes.
And the track, Paul?
Well, we want to make sure we don't have a dip in temperature, but it'll be as quick as the temperature is constantly above 50. And also, with relation to putting down the track, it's a 2-week time frame from start to finish. That's spraying the surface, letting it dry, then coming back and restripe it. We will go out with a variety of media announcements to make sure the townspeople know so that they're aware, and also that cars aren't driving around that upper parking spot when they're spraying it, because we don't want to get anybody's vehicle damaged. So full dissemination to the community so that they know what's going on.
I was at the track today. There was a lot of people up there today.
Yeah, exactly. But hopefully with warmer weather, they might choose to walk someplace else. Who knows? But your point's well taken.
Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, one of my favorite topics, the sidewalks at Terrible High School. Who's gonna take that on?
Approximately 10 days ago, Jim Mazon and I met with Bill Hamsey, the town attorney, because tobacco contractors put a lien on the sidewalk. I don't know how they're going to repossess it, but we took a walk around, pointed out the workmanship or lack thereof, and he agreed with us, specifically right in the front area where the entry is. We've had to place a cone so people don't trip because part of the surface is starting to come up. I'll read to you the note that I got from Jim today. He says, I heard, this is Bill Hamsey's note to Jim. I heard back from their attorney. He's going to have someone from tobacco contact you directly to review the work that was done and discuss a resolution. Let me know if you don't hear from someone in the next couple of days, and I'll follow up, Bill. So the absolute minimum, I think, the sidewalk directly in front of the entrance should be repaired so there is no tripping hazard or liability that the school would be responsible for. Also, I'd like to see them shave a little off their price for kind of dragging us through this, because they've been unresponsive to our requests, and when they come out, they're kind of haphazard in the way they deal with us.
I feel like this has been a thorn in our side forever.
Yes.
They did a lousy job.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I would also like to possibly see an independent person come out to evaluate the work before any payment is made.
Yeah. Okay.
For industry standard, to see if it is what it needs to be.
Sure.
I agree.
Will do.
They should get anything. I mean, horrible.
I think at minimum, I think we would have to pay them for the material they bought.
The material made it worse.
All right, thanks for working on that, and I'm sure yourself and Jim and Mr. Hamsey will come up with a good solution.
Yeah.
All right.
The last thing here is the personnel report. If you'd like me to move into that quickly.
Yep.
You should all have the personnel report dated May 13th. We've mentioned the retirement of Miss Morley, school counselor at the middle school. And you're also aware of the retirement of Donna Griffin, who is the chemistry teacher at Taylorville High School. So you're aware of those two. Some of the other stuff is just some straightforward things. We got Miss Avcali, who's going to be our summer school program coordinator. That's typically, if you're wondering, our summer school program is typically done online. We use Edgenuity, which is an online platform to have students do credit recovery. So, however, knowing Miss Avcali, there's going to be all kinds of times where she's going to be touching base with the kids to make sure that they're getting through the work that they need to get through so they can pass the classes that they didn't pass. We've got a child rearing leave, and then we have a few postings for a couple items, but there's nothing really, anything major to hold out on this report, but I'd certainly answer any questions if you have some.
How are we going to be covering Emily's child rearing, because we have such a hard time with that type of service?
Well,
I know Lindsay's stressing about this, I'm sure.
Lindsay can probably give you a much longer answer, but when we learned about this, Lindsay started working immediately with Ed Advance and look to see if they're going to be able to provide us the BCBA needs we need in that short-term duration.
I mean, I would think that should be a part of that conversation we had with Ed Advance prior to anyways, helping us fill those spots at times.
Yeah, the question will be, what's the most economical use of the agreement we have with Ed Advance?
Okay.
So the most economical thing is if we have a student who would benefit from that particular program, that we would take advantage of our one free tuition there. That's the most economical use of that. So Lindsay's making sure she pays attention to that piece. Then there's the other portion where they actually provide us special education services.
Okay.
But it's at a lesser cost than what an actual full-time student placement would be.
Okay.
So that's where we're looking. So we believe we'll get the BCBA through at Advance, but that's not a definite, but I think that's a pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I can add to that a little bit. I did meet with their director of BCBAs. I guess that's her title. She probably has a more formal title than that, but she's in charge of all the BCBAs throughout the districts that they support. And Emily and I had a meeting with her. I met with her and someone else from Ed Advance last week, and Emily and I had a meeting with her to go over Emily's entire caseload and what would need to be covered while she's out, so that Jen is the person that we met with, can go through their BCBAs and make sure that they are able to cover the leave. And if they're not able to cover it, then I will look into other resources. But if they are, then we will go with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on to item 10, public comment. Again, if you're on a cell phone, *9, and the computer, it's in the lower screen. Do you see any public comment?
Woody.
Do not. Dr. Semmel, do you see any?
I do not see any.
All right. With none seen at this time, we'll move on to new, hold on. Board liaisons to schools. Okay, so I talked to the president of Hairiest Fisher Elementary today via text. She gave me some notes. The 5th grade grad signs went out to all 5th graders who requested one. The PTA bought 70 signs from Murphy Boys in Litchfield. The PTA gave all staff at Fisher Elementary School Amazon gift cards for Teacher Appreciation Week. All students loved the teacher parade last Monday, 5-4. It was a great seeing all the staff drive around town for 3 hours. And yearbooks will be delivered tomorrow, and they're working with Mrs. Loveland for distribution. Next meeting is 5/19 via Zoom for the PTA. All right. Mr. Elsegar, Plymouth Center?
I haven't heard anything from them. I don't believe they met.
Okay. Cindy, Eli Terry?
So for the middle school, there's a group of parents that are really involved, and they are working on 8th grade signs that were just ordered. And Mrs. Suffridge will be working with some of her staff to drop off the signs and maybe do pictures or just say hi. They're working on 8th grade shirts as well for the kids, and these 8th grade parents are really working hard to get a lot of festivities in for the kids that they could, and of course it would be pretty much drop off and stuff. We're voting on our new membership as well. We're going to have another meeting towards the end of the month, so any incoming 5th grade parents that might want to be on the board, we do have one opening left, so just send us an email. For the Booster Club, we have a lot of leftover concession candy that we were able to donate to the foods program to go out into the lunch boxes, so that was nice that we were able to do that for the kids in town. We did vote in all of our new membership for next year. We, because we don't have a lot of the expenses that we normally do, and with everything going on, we bumped up our scholarships to $4,000 that we're going to give out this year. I know there were 7 applications. I don't know who won or anything yet. We got the okay to go ahead and order stuff for sports awards. We don't know what it's going to look like for people to get their awards, but there will be awards. And we're doing the roster for the spring sports that was last year, because a lot of athletes work really hard to get the, I'm not an athlete, so it's like a 12 season, 12 something, like they played 3 seasons all 4 years, and there's like an award for that, so whatever they call it. I know that they really wanted that, so.
All right. Mrs. Casa.
Yeah, Mr. Holtz pretty much summed up our PTSA meeting, but I'd like to add that the PTSA has purchased signs for all of the seniors. Apparently they're being delivered over the next couple days. We got ours last week. I'm not sure how we got ours early, but it was on my lawn when I got home. So it was very nice of them. They were not charging. They just gave one to all the seniors.
Let everyone know who made it.
What's that, Cindy?
Tell them who made it.
Oh, her last name's Morgan. What's her first name?
Emily.
Emily Morgan, yes. Emily Morgan is the one who designed the signs. Ooh, Cindy, putting me on the spot there. So yes, it was nice that she designed she's also the one that is working with Mr. Holtz to have the design in the gym for the kids section of the gym decorated. So they are also talking about returning class dues to those who have paid, and using the money that they fundraised for the end of the year activities. This is more on the class side, to pay for things like caps and gowns and end of the year senior things that are needed. So everyone really is looking out for the seniors. Everybody has their interest at heart. It's a little hard for me to be subjective or stay out of it too much because I have a senior. So, for me, every time somebody mentions something, I almost cried through Mr. Holtz's presentation because I just get emotional about it. It's sad to me that they, are getting so shortchanged. So, I hope that some of the things that the PTSA and the class officers and Mr. Holtz are doing, are going to make them feel a little bit better. And I appreciate the support of the board as well in your efforts to give our kids as normal a graduation as possible. Thank you.
Let's see what we can do. All right. Mr. Foote.
No report.
Okay. Mrs. Kreml. No report. Okay. Mrs. Johnson.
I have a few things. So my meeting was a couple days ago. So interestingly enough, they applied for an additional grant for their Head Start, and it's a one-time supplemental plan because of the COVID, and they got $64,000 extra this year for that. They've been negotiating transportation with each district because of what's going on budgetarily with all of us. they negotiated with all of their vendors, and they got their insurance company for their auto to basically not charge them for any of the vans that they're not using right now, because they still do have some that they have to use, but they're not paying for any insurance. So that helps their budget. We actually tabled the budget because there's so much going on. So we'll be bringing that up next month. We also tabled the COLA increase because, again, we don't know where anything is coming from. They elected their officers for next year. They only hold 1-year officers, and they elected me as member at large. So I am now, I guess, a board member there. And let's see. I guess that's it, but we're good.
All right. Congratulations.
You know, you can't say no, right?
All right. Mr. Showers, District Safety Committee.
The meeting today was canceled, and we're trying to reschedule for sometime in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Great. All right. Board comments. All right. Let's start with Mr. Showers. Do you have any board comments?
Nope, I'm fine.
All right. Mrs. Johnson.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Kreml. Nothing? Okay. Mr. Foote.
No comment.
All right. Mrs. Kalasa.
Nope, all set.
All right. Cindy?
I have a couple.
Oh, I knew
Probably
you
'cause I
would.
have so many kids in school, so I loved all the videos that I've been seeing, between the kid videos to the teachers that their appreciation, the staff videos. That's been really nice to see. The parade and the signs that Fisher had, I've heard so many parents were crying during it, how much they loved it, how the kids were so excited to be outside. It was really, really positive. And then I just want to say for the staff, so for instance, I have a 3rd grade, a 6th grade, and 2 in high school, and my high schooler is being very lazy, and the staff is like really getting on her, which is really good because, you know, kids don't listen to their parents. So the staff's been really good with that. And then even for my 3rd grader, you know, his teacher calls the Google Meets or whatever, and you can hear her, and she's like, "Hey, buddy," you know, like to all the kids, and like, you know, she's just like, "I'm giving you guys a virtual hug," and she's so like, it's just so nice to hear her and the kids, you know, like on the Google Meets and stuff like that. And you can tell that like a lot of the staff is really putting like a lot of effort into, you know, when they're doing their like 1-hour classrooms. You know, I hear Jillian going on her Google Meets and she's giggling like, "Oh my gosh, this one's online too. Oh my gosh," you know, like, so as hard it is to be at home and stuff, especially my 2 younger ones have really connected really well with the virtual learning, and they really love it. One of the teachers called, and Jill got really nervous. She's like, "Oh my gosh, what did she need?" But she just didn't hit in like a submit button or whatever. So it's really good that the staff are calling, you know, and, "Hey, I noticed you didn't do this," or, "Hey, you've been doing this, good job." And it's really, really like meant a lot to the kids and stuff. So I just want to let everyone know that too. And the school lunches are still doing good.
Mr. Elsegar.
I got him.
Unmute him, yeah.
I got him.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I guess the only thing is, I don't even have kids, but I feel like Karen does. I'm not biased on this either. I feel horrible for seniors who aren't getting a real graduation. And I guess from the vibe that I'm getting from Karen, and I know how I feel, I obviously can't say I speak for the rest of the board, but I have a feeling that we would stand with you guys in any way that you try to put together as real a graduation and ceremony as you can. So I know I'm with you. I'm pretty sure Karen is too. Can't speak for the rest, but I think we are.
Okay. I agree with Mr. Elsegar. Let's see what the guidelines come down from the state. My opinion is if we can let 900 and something people into a Walmart, there's no reason we can't have a nice outside graduation for our seniors. And that's just my opinion. Well, let's see what the guidelines are, and we'll take it from there and keep up doing the good work. All right, any other board comments? Okay, hearing none. The next board meeting of the Board of Education will be June 10th, 2020 is, oh, excuse me. The meeting will be a special meeting to be held on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020 at 7 p.m.
The sad thing is, Mr. Seaman, that we were going to do it on we chose the 3rd because the 10th was so close to graduation. But with all this conversation you guys are having tonight, you know, if we hold as close to a graduation as possible on the 12th, then it still makes a lot of sense to keep the June 3rd meeting as the next meeting date instead of June 10th.
All right. One thing that I did, I need to revert back to item number 11. I go by the liaisons to the school, and I forgot one of the board members. I'm sorry, Mrs. Lucian. Do you have anything that you would like to say?
Yes, I'm really happy that Plymouth set up the Google Meets, because I know a lot of districts are behind with the Google Meets with the classroom. So I'm very happy that Plymouth School is doing that.
All right. Thank you. Are you all set, Michelle?
Yes.
All right. I won't forget you next month. I hope. All right. All right. So item number 14, executive session. Talk about superintendent's annual review and some contracts. I'd like to entertain a motion to enter into an executive session at 8:24 p.m. to discuss the superintendent's annual review and the contracts for the business manager and the director of technology, inviting in Dr. Semmel to attend the executive session.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second? Okay, do I have a discussion on that motion? All right,
Can we
hearing
just
none,
take,
all in
can we,
favor?
wait. Can we take like a 2-minute break between, please?
Yeah, I agree.
Just like a 2-minute break, so like we normally do?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, do you
Well,
mind if I
let's
just,
pass the motion first.
yeah,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll reconvene in 2 minutes.
Right.
All right. Item number 16 on the agenda, possible action from executive session. First one, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the contract for the business manager as discussed in executive session.
So moved.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Any discussion on that motion?
I just want to say I love Paul. I'm going to have to vote no, not because of anything Paul's done, but just because I can't vote yes on increasing any spending right now with the way the economy is. If the contract was given to be the same contract Paul had already, I would happily say yes. I just can't support an increase.
So why don't we do a roll call vote on this? We'll start with Mrs. Kalesa.
Yes.
Mrs. Kreml.
No.
Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Lucian.
Yes.
Cindy.
Yes.
Mr. Elsegar.
No.
Mr. Showers.
Yes.
And Mr. Foote.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Seaman, before you, excuse me for 1 second, before you move on, because Pat's not here any longer, I didn't catch who did the motion to start. Who made the motion? Melissa, you made the motion? All right. And then I had Cindy seconding it. Is
I
that-
didn't, but you can write me down if you want.
I think I said.
Michelle did, okay. All right. So I just got to catch that because she'll be mad at me if I don't catch it right.
So if I understand it, the motion carries with a vote of 6-2.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Next motion, to entertain a motion to approve the contract for the Director of Technology as discussed in executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, discussion on the motion.
Same thing as before. I love Rich, and I wish I just want him to know that I'm voting for the position of Director of Technology, not on him as a person, because him as a person, I just give him $1 million or something if we could make that appear. But for the position of Director of Technology, for the way the economy is going, and I just can't support increases in spending right now. That's just personally how it's been for me for a while now. I feel like it's gonna be like that well into the future too. So I'm gonna have to vote no.
Okay. So we'll do a roll call vote on this. Any other discussion? All right, we'll start off with Mrs. Casa.
Yes.
Mrs. Kreml.
Yes.
Mr. Elsigar.
No.
Cindy.
Yes.
Mrs. Lucian.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Showers.
Yes.
Mr. Foote.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 7-1 in favor of the contract. All right. Number 17, everybody's favorite. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:04 p.m.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Nice job, everybody.
All right.
Night, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Night.
Good night.